Now you might be saying to me, what are you doing in Primal Avatar? Well, I'll go over all of the decisions that I made to cover why I am in the Destinies that I'm in. There are so many different ways that you can look at how to put yourself into Destinies. So what I'm trying to maximize is my survivability as I farm gear, and then also because I'm soloing a lot, because what happens is that the end game, there's only 3 groups of all these LFMs that are in legendary or epic content. So the groups become very difficult to find. So I have to solo a lot. So my Destiny selection primarily is initially to solo. If I get into a static Reaper group, then my choices might change. But for now, I have already successfully farmed Legendary Hard, Legendary Elite, and I've done a Legendary Reaper quest. I did Sharn Welcome on Reaper 1 by myself, and it was fine. So let me go over what my Destiny selection is for. Because I am a drow, I go into Grandmaster of Flowers, and I take this Calm Before the Storms. This does 2 things for me. One, it gives me spell resistance that stacks. The second thing it does, it gives me a no-fail will saving throw. My will saving throw is 53. The spell resistance, right now I'm sitting at a 56. Ideally, I would have this number up around 70-something, 80-something, depending on how good I could get my gear, but my gear is pretty terrible right now, so that's the best that I can do. Out of this tree, there's stuff that really doesn't matter. I get 10 positive heal amp. I get 3 to my heal, diplomacy, and intimidate. Now, I happen to use heal diplomacy, so that is good for me. This stun DC that I have to take, it's a wasted point. It's one of the problems with this new Epic Destiny system is that you waste points trying to get things that you like. In the old system, I could have just twisted this. In this new system, I have to buy up to it, and so as a result, I'm wasting points. The first core grants me a couple of useful things. It gives me another +1 to my spell resistance, 15 maximum hit points, melee and ranged power. I don't need the melee and ranged power, but I do take the hit points and I do take the spell resistance. The next tree I decided to go in is my Unyielding Sentinel, and the Unyielding Sentinel is purely for defense. I am sitting here with 1500 hit points. For Reaper questing on the Hardcore League, you want at least 2000 hit points. If I buff up, I go over 2,000, and that is largely due to my going into the Unyielding Sentinel. Each core that you take, I get Die Hard as a feat. I get 35 hit points per core, 20 spell points, and 5 melee power. The melee power doesn't matter, but the spell points and the hit points do. I also get a ward against curses, 10% less evil damage. The next tier, which is really why I decided to take Unyielding Sentinel at all, is because I do right now use a shield. Having this ever watchful 3rd core gives me immunity to most forms of knockdown while I have a shield equipped. That is great for Hardcore League because if you get knocked down, it's a really great way to get killed. As long as I'm standing, I can heal. The next thing I get out of Unyielding Sentinel is Divine Energy Resistance. Divine Energy Resistance, you can see just standing here, I have 15, 30, 15. Well, those are good numbers for heroics, but they're terrible for legendary content. I can cast my energy resistance now, and all of those numbers go to 50. It's a start. You probably could fall in lava for a bit and not instantly die. The next thing I get out of here is Brace for Impact. This gives me 50% stacking fortification and a +1 to all my saving throws. You want to get your fortification up as high as you can get it. Me, without that, I would be very close to 100, and I didn't want to get critically hit and die, because a critical hit in Legendary Reaper, you get hit for over 1,000 damage. The next is Renewal. This is a heal. I cast this on myself and it puts a 7-second hot on me. It heals me every 2 seconds. The next thing I have over here is just basically trash. I didn't want to spend these points, but I had to spend 10 points to get Ever Watchful. And the only useful thing for me in this whole tree was, because I'm using a shield, the AC of my shield is now increased by 50%. And now that brings us to Primal Avatar, which is the main show of my build. Primal Avatar is a very fun sort of, the way that they made it, it's very self-reliant. In other words, it constantly generates temporary spell points and temporary hit points. One of the abilities that I have puts up a shard storm on me, and these look for targets and attack them, anything that comes near me. And that's 360 degrees, so no matter where I am, as long as I have that up, and it's up reasonably often, they will attack whatever's around me when I activate that. So my hit points go up to 2,000, over 2,000. I also get Rejuvenation Cocoon, which is very similar to Renewal. And those of you who played DDO and used the old system know Rejuvenation Cocoon was one of the twists that everybody used. It's a twist that I used, so it's the same as it's always been. There's the 8-second hot, and it also gives me temporary hit points. The exact amount of those temporary hit points when I do my cocoon is 150. So if I have my cocoon up and I do my thorns, I've got 600 bonus temporary hit points. My hit points go to 2163. My PRR needs to be up over 100. My MRR needs to be up over 100. And they are way off of being acceptable. So I have to be really careful. The first one in Primal Avatar that I do is Thorn, and that allows me to gain Acid, Force, Poison, and Universal Spell Power. My spell power in Angel of Vengeance is all geared towards light and fire. My light and fire spellcasting is boosted in Angel of Vengeance. So light, positive, and fire are the three spell powers that I used in Heroics. The second core I took, which is a minor affinity, I took Heart, which Heart is fire, light, and positive. And it just said my three main are fire, light, and positive. I am using my main, but I took it as a second because I wanted to take the Thorn Epic Strike. And the Thorn Epic Strike is something called Carrion Swarm. It is an epic strike. Now, those of you who are unfamiliar with the new Destiny system, you have to pick one mantle, one epic strike, and one epic moment. And they are all different. They all function differently, but you can only have one of them active at once. Now, you are welcome to select multiple mantles, but you can only have one active at one time. This mantle that I have active is the only one. If I were to take another mantle out of, let's say I took Serenity from Grandmaster Flowers and pinned it to my bar, they would be mutually exclusive. I could only have one active at a time. The same thing goes for epic strikes. This Carrion Swarm is the epic strike of Primal Avatar. This Grandmaster strike is the, let's say Orchid Blossom is the epic strike of Grandmaster Flowers. If I took this and pinned it, I could only use either this or this, either this or this. Even though I took them both, they would throw each other on cooldown. So it's important to understand that you can take multiple epic strikes, but you can only use one at a time. The rest of them are thrown on cooldown. And with a mantle, you could take multiple mantles, but you can only use one, have that one active at one time. I decided, even though I'm in this mantle, to use this epic strike. Now, I did not need to do that. I could have taken this mantle and then taken Orchid Blossom, for example, out of here as my epic strike. I could have just taken this epic strike and then not used this mantle at all and gone for this mantle. I actually thought about doing that because the Grandmaster of Flowers mantle would allow me, if I activate that mantle, it gives me a 15% boost to my movement speed that stacks with everything else. I no longer take damage from falling, and I would be immune to all slippery surfaces and knockdown. I also could fight like a monk and would have ki. Now that, all I would have to do is put a point in that and activate it, and I would have my knockdown immunity. I could get rid of everything I have in Unyielding Sentinel that I took to get knockdown immunity, because I would have it over here. And then I could use the epic strike that I have selected over in Primal Avatar while I'm in this mantle over here. I would not need to use this epic strike. I could use any epic strike, and I would likely use this one. The reason that I did not do that is because this mantle that I took, this heart mantle, gives me a chance every time I cast a spell or attack anything in melee or attack anything in ranged to apply a secondary spell based on what it is that I just did. So if I cast a fire, light, or alignment spell, that spell has a chance to apply extra damage that is 1d6 per character level of the type that I did. So for example, as long as I'm in this mantle and I cast this Ascendancy, which is basically, Ascendancy is a free cast of Searing Light that you can meta magic. So you can see I have all my meta magics on it. So if I cast this Ascendancy, there's a chance that I do, because of this mantle, an extra 1d6 per character level damage, and that stacks with the damage that it's already doing, and that can happen once every 5 seconds. The same thing also happens that I can, if I am casting a healing spell, because I am in the Mantle of Nature Heart, any healing spell that I cast, anything that's considered a healing spell, and there's quite a bit of things that are considered a healing spell, has a chance to also apply a rejuvenation cocoon to my target of cocoon. And there it is. You can see that popped the rejuvenation cocoon when I cast a heal. And that happens for anything that's considered a heal spell. And that is any target that I target. So if I were casting a heal on a friend, there's a chance that that heal could land a rejuvenation cocoon on them. And that is very good for the Hardcore League. That gives me more healing, a chance to have more healing, and that's one of the reasons I did it. The next reason that I did it is because one of the sort of perks about being in Primal Avatar is that at the top tier, you gain access to a few abilities, and I wanted this Dryad. The Dryad, you know, those of you who played the old system know, the Dryad was a summons in the old Primal Avatar that you could spec into, and it would give you sort of a traditional hireling summon that you would cast, and this little Dryad would follow you around. Well, they changed it. It no longer works the same way as it used to. Basically, these summons now are like the Artificer's fire pillar, that thing that they put down that spews fire out. Except it's either a Dryad, a storm, like a little, looks like an air elemental, or something that looks like a tree, that do either damage or heal. Well, the Dryad is both. She does damage and she heals. And so when I cast her, you can see I have her on my bar. She's quickened. When I cast her, and I'll even show you, I'll go out into the wilderness and show you, she becomes a stationary cast that hangs out. There she is. She's a guardian. She hangs out. She's fixed. She will not follow me, but she is in a set location, and she has basically around her this sort of area of effect. Anything that goes into her area of effect, she is going to attack. And if I am in her area of effect and I take damage, she will cast a heal on me. Now, you can see she doesn't last that long. She only lasts like 10 seconds. But so she functions as a heal, light, and fire, DPS, and healing sort of a beacon. And this is another reason why I wanted to be in this mantle, because I am able to, from this mantle now, go up into this skill here, which is called Shared Mantle, which basically any summon or hireling that I have also benefits from my mantle and gains access to my current spell power. So that means that anything that I summon or hire, whether it is, you know, like a traditional one of these, you know, let's see, this is my Feywild Muse. If we examine him, you can see that he's got Death Block, he's got Freedom of Movement, he's got Enhanced PRR, MRR, he's got Enhanced Ability Scores, but then he's also got my Mantle. He's got the Mantle of Heart. So any healing spells that he casts have a chance to put Cocoon on a target. Any fire or light that he casts has a chance to blast it with an extra burst of that damage. And so this is really good for when I use, like when I'm questing by myself and I use a hireling like the Feywild Muse, or if I were to use some other, or if I were to use, for example, Urethra, who is a level 27 cleric. She's pretty much the highest heal bot that you can get. You can see when I examine her, she's got the Mantle too. And let's see if we can get her to proc on me a Cocoon. Well, I'll just have her cast it on me. I'll just have her keep casting it on me. Yes, and there it is. She casts heal on me, and there's the Cocoon. So the Mantle works on hires. Well, this also is considered a hire, this Guardian. So she also has the Mantle. She will also be using the Mantle for when she casts a heal or when she casts light or fire. And that's pretty much all she casts is light, fire, and heal. Well, another good thing about this shared mantle is that they gain your current spell power. So they are not stuck as just some lowly hireling anymore. Well, now they have access to all of my spell power. Now, my spell power is terrible because I am in very bad gear. All of my spell power numbers are around 500. My light spell power is 600. My acid is 571. My fire is 545. And my positive is 544. So they're all around the same. That means that Urethra gets my 544 positive spell power, my 545 fire spell power. The Feywild Muse gets it. This Dryad gets it. They all get my spell power, which is boosted by things that I have in my gear, like this Barovia Scepter. That is very helpful for me while I'm questing, especially because I'm questing alone and I'm using hirelings on the Hardcore League. Another benefit of being in this, when I'm in the Mantle of Nature, there's a chance that I will get temporary spell points that last for 60 seconds, and that is any cast of any spell. So we'll see. Here's my renewal. Here's my cocoon. This is my spell resistance. This is my death ward. I'll do another renewal. I'll do another cocoon. I have not yet popped it, but it will. It pops quite frequently. I'll just do some more buffs. There it is. Okay, so there's Evergreen. So you can see I have 100 temporary hit points, and that lasts for 1 minute. So that makes mana management very effective because now anything I cast is coming out of this temporary mana pool and not eating up my actual mana because it's just temporary. The same thing for these temporary hit points that I get. 2100. Anything that hits me is going to eat those first 600 points before it actually gets to me. One of the great things in this tree is if you do shrine, it gives you an access to more hit points. When I rest at a shrine, a little friendly unicorn comes along and blesses us for a 5% insight bonus to hit points. Another thing that I get in this tree is 15 universal spell power, and when I use Enlarge, I spend 9 fewer spell points. I do currently have Enlarge. Another thing I got in this tree is Evasion, and I am using gear that allows me to evade. I have a light shield. Actually, my shield's a buckler. If you're going to evade, you can really only use a buckler or a light shield. You cannot use a heavy shield or a tower shield. And you also have to be in no or light armor, and I am in light armor. So right now I have evasion. Now my reflex save is only a 48. It's not that high. However, having it is better than not having it. You can see there. If I make a reflex save, I take no damage. So I would like to get my reflex saves higher. It's just my gear is pretty terrible. I took the spider because the spider, when I rest, gives me a bonus to acid and poison spell power. And it also gives me 15 poison absorb. Poison is something that champions will hit you with a dot for poison. So it's always helpful to have a poison absorb. This here, Spirit Boon Mind, gives me a +2 stacking to my Charisma, Wisdom, and Intelligence. It's one of the only sources in the new Epic Destiny system to get an enhancement to your core ability scores. My Charisma is 66 right now. This skill here, Thrive, allows me to, anytime I use the Epic Strike that is in the Primal Avatar tree, so anytime I use my Carrion Swarm, I have a chance, a 30% chance, that all the spells that I cast after that will cost 25% less. So it is another means of my managing my spell points and reserving sort of survivability for myself by not utilizing a lot of spell points. And then this here, at its core, this is what gives me my temporary hit points. This is the bonus. So anytime I cast this Shard Storm, which is a DPS ability, that's what gives me the bonus 550 hit points. So that's a key part of the build that I'm doing, is this right here. And so I'll look at the last core over here. I gain a 15% absorption to fire, cold, electric, acid, and poison damage. And then whenever I cast protection from energy, I get 25 points per level instead of 12, and they don't have a level cap. Not only do I have this divine energy resistance, that casting that put a rejuvenation cocoon on me because it's considered a beneficial spell. This protection from elements mask that I can put on the group, and everyone in the group would gain 500 hit points against these certain damage type. And those points stay for 25 minutes, essentially making you immune for the first 500 points. I do not take Mass Frog. My DCs are not high enough to really benefit. +1 to all DCs would be nice. I ran out of points. The greater form is the epic moment of and every Destiny has an epic moment. But these epic moments are sort of lame. Nothing that would help me stay alive. Probably the best epic moment that I could have access to would be Undying Vanguard, would give me 10,000 temporary hit points. You can only go tier 5 in one. I went tier 5 in this, and the buy up to get tier 5 over here, all of this stuff is for tanks. It would not be useful for me at all unless I was tanking. The tier 5 over here, the epic moment, is something called Split the Soul. The survivability out of Split the Soul isn't really enough. This little heal spot sentry that damages and heals is a way more useful tier 5 for me. join us for more. I plan to do lore videos for each quest in DDO, as well as the raids. Plus, I will be releasing more Session 0 videos for DDO on topics such as player character races, the religions of Eberron, the Last War, and the Mournlands, the Dragon Marks, the Dragon Marked houses, and much, much more. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video. Comment down below. I like interacting with other players. My main tune in DDO is named Mary. I am on Sarlona. I also have a guild on the Hardcore League. My guild is Death Smile. Please say hi if you're on either of those servers. Subscribe to see more Adventure AI content about DDO, Dungeons & Dragons Online, and gaming in general. I also play Star Wars The Old Republic. You can join us at Adventure AI on Discord. Check us out on Twitch. Check us out on Twitter. You can go to our Patreon and become a patron of the channel, where you would get access to all of the scripts, the images, the music, the videos, as well as behind the scenes, and the ability to request topics for me to make future videos. Thanks very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope your adventures go well.